In just under 53 hours, I did almost everything that Armored Core 6 has to offer. I beat every mission. I got all the parts, I got top rank in the arena, and I have all but 2 of the achievements. One of those is the achievement to own all the achievements, and the other one is the achievement for getting an S rank on every single mission, which I have yet to do. I have, however, done everything else, and I absolutely loved it. I beat both playthrough 1 and playthrough 2 before the patch that changed a couple of boss behaviors. However, I didn't notice that big of a change myself in playthrough 3, but that also could be just because I had already beaten the game twice by that point. I love this game. This is, unless something else surprises me before the end of the year, this is my game of the year. I loved every moment that I spent with Armored Core 6. I did a launch stream when it first came out, and I sucked at first. It was a really tough time getting past that tutorial boss because I hadn't played Armored Core in a long time. The last one that I played was For Answer, and I had forgotten a lot of how Armored Core worked. I'd gotten so used to From's other games that I tried to play it like that. And after about 20 minutes, when I shook the rust off finally, I beat the tutorial boss, and it was smooth sailing pretty much from there. This game is fairly easily broken in some ways, and I did it a couple times without meaning to, but for the most part, it's really well balanced, and it's missing a few parts from previous Armored Cores. It doesn't have snipers, unfortunately, which is kind of a pain, but other than that, it really is just a return to form, right? There's a couple other little things that are different here, and the story is kind of really different in some ways, but also kind of more the same. We'll get into story spoilers in a little bit, but gameplay-wise, if you've never played an Armored Core before, this is high-octane, fast-paced action with a mech that you can change out the left and right arm slots on and the right and left shoulder slots on. You can get upgrades that allow you to put a weapon rack on each shoulders that'll allow you to bring another regular weapon instead of the normal shoulder weapons, but your left arm can use melee weapons, your left shoulder can use shields, and then other than that, your weapon use is the same. I really enjoy the speed, the mobility that this game gives, and melee weapons feel strong, they feel good. Shotguns feel amazing. I've always been a shotgun guy, and the Zimmermans are gonzo how good they are. They should not be that good probably, but I can't believe they survived the patch. I'm glad they did, because I really love them. In fact, my main build for my second playthrough was a Zimmerbird playthrough, which is Twin Zimmersons, Twin Songbirds, and it's very busted for PvE. But it was really fun on playthrough 2 to just blitz through everything. On playthrough 1, my main build was switch legs. We'll get into legs in just a second. I should have got into that already. With reverse legs, that is, reverse knee legs. With a pile bunker and a linear rifle. And I loved that. It was so much fun. If you go back and hear my early impressions of the game, that is the build that I recommended. But I also had a tank build that had twin laser cannons on its shoulders. And it was incredible. It's so much fun. The fact that you can switch out parts anytime that you lose or anytime that you die, you can go back to assemble, you can go back to load other ACs that you've saved. So you can have all these different mechs with all these different loadouts. You go into a fight you've never been in before or one you've done many times and go, you know what, this is not the right build for this. I'm going to die. I'm going to load a different AC. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to win. And it's great. I love that it gives you that option. You don't have to go back to the garage and completely restart the mission. You can start from that checkpoint with that different AC or with that different set of parts, and it's wonderful and amazing. You have a set of different leg options. You have bipedal legs, which are just your standard mech legs, right? They're bipedal. They're pretty solid. They're general use. They're really fun. Reverse joints, which are my favorites. The spring chicken specifically is the one that I used for most of the game. The spring chickens are reverse joints, that is, are legs that give you a lot more upward momentum and allow you to stay in the air a little bit better, but they're also lighter, so they're not going to have quite as much AP for your health or your defense. They're going to be less in both those regards. Tetrapods are walker legs. I wish there were more of these in the game. I only found 2, and I got the achievement for having all the parts, so I know that's all that's in there, but hopefully with some DLC they can adjust that. However, these allow you to have quite a bit of AP and defense when running around, but also let you hover. So they give you some different options there, and there are some enemies that really don't know how to deal with you when you're hovering, and some missions that hovering is the best way to handle it. And then finally, there's the tank legs. You get a few of these. I got 3 throughout the course of my playthrough, and they're all very different from each other. These are big, tough, stompy, heavy, not going to be quite as fast. In fact, they cut your speed substantially unless you're using the lightweight version of them. But you have a lot more defense, a lot more weight that you can put on your mech, because that's another thing you have to worry about is your weight, your load, your equip load, right? And then you also need to worry about your energy load, which is where boosters and generators come in. It gets deep if you want to get deep into it. You can fine-tune and make the perfect AC, or you can just slap a bunch of cool parts on there and keep putting other stuff on there until everything's fine and hunky-dory and you can launch. There are so many different options, from assault rifles, to linear rifles, to chain guns, to shotguns, to pistols, to bazookas, to specialty bazookas, to grenade launchers, to napalm launchers, jamming launchers, stun launchers, laser rifles, laser shotguns, plasma rifles, some specialty rifles that you get later on in the game, pulse guns. There's so missile launchers. There's so much you can do, and that's just for the right hand weapons, right? Right arms. Left arms also include things like daggers and blades and pile bunkers and chainsaws and explosive throwers and lances. And then for your shoulders, you have stuff like bazookas and laser cannons and plasma launchers and funnels if you're a Gundam fan, and giant missiles. There's so much customization, and every part works differently, even the ones that are in the same line, and this is clearly the upgrade of it. The two different basic linear shotguns that you have are very different from each other. The two different laser shotguns are very different from each other. Every head has different stats. Every core piece has different stats. Every arm piece has different stats. Every leg piece has different stats. Every booster, every SCS for your different assists, every generator, and even the expansions that you can get that buff up your machines, they're all very different, and they all change the way it plays. And if this seems overwhelming to you, don't worry. You get it little bits at a time, step by step by step by step. So there's plenty of time to get used to it. There's plenty of time to build your way into it. And before you know it, you have a really good understanding of how the different parts work. Or you just like to throw stuff on there and make it look cool, which is absolutely fair. You can also paint every single unit. You can paint either each individual piece, or you can paint the whole thing different colors, and then you can paint the weapons too. I do wish the painting was a little bit more specific. I'd like to be able to select specific parts of the head to paint instead of just the preset options, but you can still make some really cool looking mechs. Then you also have the decals, where you can get custom decals that you download from other players or that you can make yourself and apply to your ACs. And these can be moved around basically wherever you want to on there. And that gives you a lot of options as well to be able to make some really cool stuff. I downloaded a Team Daiguren logo from Gurren Lagann pretty early on that somebody made, and I just rolled with it from there. The only annoyance with these decals is that you can't use decals that are on a different platform from you. Like, I had all the PC options because I got the game on Steam, but if you're playing on console, you don't have all those options, and that's frustrating. You can save 40 different ACs per user, and there are up to 4 user options, and you can also download ACs from other people, again with the same limitations as before, or you can use preset ACs from different people that you fight in the arena. This gives you a ton of different options if you decide, hey, I want to try this. I don't know if it's going to be any good, but I want to give it a shot, and I can save it. And then at any time, you can go back and save over those slots. You can load those slots. So many options, and really that's what Armored Core 6 is about as far as I'm concerned. It's about the options. You can do basically whatever you want here. And over the course of the different playthroughs, you only continue to get cooler and cooler options to be able to roll with. Another thing I really love about this game is that you can buy parts, and then you can also sell parts back to the shop for the exact same amount that you purchased them for, and you can buy them back for that exact same amount later. Which means that early on, if you're struggling for money, or comb as it's called in this game, then you can at any time sell your money or sell your parts back to the shop for the exact same amount of money that you spent for them, buy a different part, and then later on just come back and buy it again. There's a lot of stuff that you can get through the shop, and the ability to at any time just sell stuff back so that you can afford to get the new cool thing you want, especially if it's stuff you're not using right away, is really, really cool. They have an OS system in here where you can tune your ACs to be a little bit stronger. You gain things like a boost kick, which changed the game for me and is my favorite thing to do in this game, is to kick somebody and then pile bunker them. You have, or hit them with twin shotguns. You have things like that weapons bay that I mentioned earlier that allow you to equip weapons onto your shoulders as well as different options for tossing off, shedding weapons after you spend all the ammo in them. You're doing quick turns, getting different expansion sets for your AC to give you options like a shield that you can launch or the ability to come back from death once. Upgrading your damage on kinetic, explosive, energy, and melee weapons, getting direct hits up for when you stun your enemies, and things like that. There's also the arena, where you can pit yourself against other copies of enemy pilots to be able to try and see how well you're doing and see how far you can get. These give you quite a bit of comb, especially early on, and the amount only gets better as you go. There's also an online PvP mode that allows you to play against other players. I've had a couple good matches against people that I know, and a couple decent matches against people that I don't, but a lot of people are spamming the same kind of builds online, and that can get a little annoying. But it was a lot of fun, honestly. It felt like fighting an enemy AC pilot, but that had a little bit more strategy to them, and sometimes made a lot more random moves than what an AI would make, right? So it was a lot of fun playing against them versus the NPC. But I've talked about a lot of the options and a lot of the systems work. How does the game itself play? It's really quick. It's really fast. There's a lot of regular enemies in most levels that you can chew through pretty quickly, but you'd have to be careful of getting overwhelmed. There are combat logs to find in the levels that if you collect enough of them, they give you another part, but they're always attached to specific enemies that are going to be a little bit more tougher. They're elites, right? That you have to go find them. They're spread out across the maps, and not every level has them. In that same way, there's also treasure chests that are held out and scattered across different maps. Not every map has them, that also have parts in them. However, unlike the combat logs, you don't have to collect a bunch of those. You collect it one time and you have it. You get the part right then. There's a ton of cool stuff to find in this game. A lot of notes and logs and things like that scattered around. And that's not even to count all the dialogue that you get with all the different characters. And we're going to get into the story in just a minute. But when it comes down to the moment-to-moment gameplay, that's where Armored Core 6 really shines. No matter what type of AC you're using, boosting up to an enemy or boosting away from an enemy, hitting them with an explosive or direct shot, anything like that, going in for a melee or just kicking them, there is so much fun to be had. All the sound effects are amazing and incredible. The voice acting is great, and it means that throughout all the different encounters, you feel the weight. The animations are perfect. You feel the weight. When that pile bunker comes back and fires in, it looks incredible. The attention to detail is incredible. They recorded the audio for it in a steel mill. The chunk when it hits the enemy, the explosion that follows, and the enemy pilot crying out, it's wonderful. It's incredible. There was so much care put into the little details. Things like your boosters cooling down, or the effect of your legs when you land on the ground or different surfaces where they'll land a little bit differently. There is so much detail. Missiles reloading, and you can watch them rescind back in as they reload. It's so good. And that doesn't even get into how good the boss fights are. The boss fights in this game are so good. Yes, some of the bosses, since you have to do 3 full playthroughs to get all the story and all the missions and all the parts, some of the bosses are kind of a cakewalk now. But they all have cool things going on. And even the ones that are kind of a cakewalk now have really cool story significance, right? The final boss is one that I still haven't been able to beat with specific builds. I was able to beat it with my best build, which I don't like using as much because it does make the game too easy, but I haven't been able to beat it with 2 of my favorite builds yet, and I'm still trying to do that. Some of the boss fights are against these giant machines that have all kinds of crazy abilities, and you need to find the right way to take them down. Some of the boss fights are against other ACs, where the pilot inside is just as determined to win as you are. Some of the boss fights are really cool spectacle fights that are actually still kind of difficult, but have some really cool stuff going on in them. It's From, right? This is what they do, and they shine here. These bosses are absolutely incredible, and I love so many of them. There's a really great boss fight on either your first playthrough or second playthrough, depending on the choices you make, where you have to fight another AC. And that AC, if you charge towards that AC will charge towards you, and the 2 of you will just ram into each other and bounce off. And it's such a cool detail that other pilot also doesn't want to have to do this fight, but you gotta. And so you collide. It's so good. There's so many little details like that too, of different ACs, pilots, and the way they fight being so different from the way that you fight. I absolutely love it. There's so much in this game that even after 53 hours, I still want more. I want DLC already. I'm going to have to go back and S-rank all the missions. I want to fully complete this game because I love this game. Armored Core 6 is absolutely incredible. The story is so cool. The builds are so cool. The world, the lore is so cool. The characters are great. I love them all for the most part, except for Iguazu. All my homies hate Iguazu. But let's get into story, because I feel like we've done everything we can to talk about mechanics and not talk about story. I feel like we've covered all of it, right? So let's get into story for Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. If you are not convinced to play this game at this point, I don't know what else to tell you. It is absolutely incredible. It is my game of the year. It's one of the best games of the year, in my opinion, no doubt, right? But it's my game of the year right now because I had so much fun playing it. I've been replaying it for a fourth time on stream on Fridays because I just love it. And people want to see the story, and I'm all for that. It's great. So let's talk story. And at this point, we're going to bring in some spoilers. You need to be aware, if you still want to play this game and you care about spoilers, you should probably go play the game and then come back. I already accidentally spoiled one thing for a friend. I don't want to accidentally spoil things for anybody else. This is your last warning. The story of Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is weird and cool in a lot of ways. There is a lot happening here, and it has been years since I played the previous games. I don't remember Coral being this, right? I don't remember it being mentioned, really, but it is Coral ignited and created the first fire, right? And not the first flame, that's a different thing. The first major fire in the Rubicon sector, and everybody's been trying to claim the rest since, right? There's more Coral. It can be used as an energy source. It's really powerful. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it. Again, we're in all spoilers at this point, so just, hey, hold on. The Coral is also alive, and it's filled with the souls of people that died in that first Coral explosion, and one of them is talking to you after the end of Chapter 1, and that completely upends everything, right? The whole goal here is completely changed, and everything has to do with the fight between these different corporations and the PCA and this Coral. You have all these different mercenaries, all these different mercs, all trying to work together, also work against each other, depending on who's paid them, right? To be able to collect the Coral or gather the Coral or find the Coral. It all comes back to the Coral. But over the course of this story, you get to meet some really great characters. Handler Walter, who is your handler, and is hiding a lot of things from you, but also genuinely seems to care about you. You get to meet Cinder Carla, and Carla's calling you a tourist the whole time, and Chatty Stick, that's also on Carla's side with RAD, and the way that they're connected to some of the people that you're dealing with. We're in all spoilers. Why am I being so shady here? The way that they're connected to Walter and the goal that the two of them have as observers. You get to meet Rusty, your buddy, right? Steel Hayes is the name of his AC. And Rusty is awesome. And every time he calls me his buddy, I get a little bit happier. And he's voiced by the same guy that voices Dimitri in Fire Emblem Three Houses. And it just made me so happy. I think it's Chris Hackney, I think is his name. Just made me so happy. Rusty also gets one of the best moments in the game with...
I won't miss.
Secondary shield down.
And...
Watch out for friendly fire.
Secondary shield down.
And...
All or nothing.
Rusty's a really cool character. I'm glad he's in this game. Depending on your choices with the decision missions, you can wind up against him or for him, and it's just really interesting to see the different ways that interaction goes depending on the choices you make. You also get to meet Gun 1 Michigan, voiced by DC Douglas, who's also the voice of Rufus Albarella.
V4 loading XL. One step ahead of you, Commander. Finally, someone with their head skirt on straight. Never thought about switching sides?
GotY Michigan is credible. I love every mission that he talks around or is in during the briefings or in the mission themselves. I love him, and spoilers again, but if you made it this far, we're talking full spoilers. Fighting against him both broke my heart and was the best because he respects you the entire fight. You also get people like V2 Snail and Gun 5 Iguazu, and we don't need to talk about any of them. They're good villains, right? They absolutely are. I think that especially Iguazu, whose hatred for you runs so deep that he can overpower All Mind, is like, okay, yeah, no, all right. I didn't think of him as a rival ever, and he took that personally. And I think that's a really cool, right? Like, that's a fun twist, because in one of your endings, you have to fight Walter, and he's falling apart, and it's really sad, and it's classic From, right? In another ending, you have to fight Air, and it's really tragic because you don't want to do that. And in the third ending, you fight Iguazu, but he's beefed up, and it's so cool that this guy that I didn't care about at all at first became like my #1 cockroach, where I just wanted to kill him every time I saw him, to, hey, he took that personally, and here he is. And it's just, I love this game. I love this game so much. Middle Flatwell and working with the Liberation Front, and there's so many good characters in this game, and you never get to see any of their faces. Like when you get moments where Chatty Stick calls you a tourist, or when you have to fight Chatty, they're really good character moments, right? All Mind trying to win you over and helping you out and making a difference, and Snail's shock or Swinburne's surprise when you ambush him, right? There's so many good moments in this game. Even when you go fight the Tester AC that was gonna become Gun 13 Gun 13, I almost said Michigan, Gun 13. It's just that poor guy was like the main character of his own show, right? And we beat him down before he ever got to do it. And it's just, I love the way they told this story. It's weird and it's cool, and the coral explosions and the IBIS units and the singularity that happens, and it's super interesting. I just love being in this world. The clash between Balaam and between Arquebus and between the PCA and the Imperial Liberation Front, or the Rubicon Liberation Front. Not the Imperial Liberation Front's a different game. That's also got DC Douglas in it, but the clash between these four and where Raven falls into it. The moment when you fight real Raven, what? This game is so good, man, and I feel like I'm doing a terrible job talking about the story, because depending on the choices you make, the story's very different, right? You have the incredible set piece mission where you get to take down all those PCA warships by having infinite boost, and it's really fun. And then you have a desperate attempt to stop Carla and having to shut down Xylem. Or you have this great moment where you're having to try and storm Xylem to take control of it so that you can ram it into the funnel where all the coral's been gathered. There's so many awesome set piece moments. The ice worm is so good. But even down to little things like you're using an AC, you're fighting LCs or HCs, and they're shocked that you're flying circles around them. You're taking them down. Lines like, let's see how far you can fly on borrowed wings. Just, you're doing great, buddy. Like little lines like that are going to be with me forever. And I'm going to reference forever. And some people on this channel are going to be like, yeah, whenever I reference it. And other people aren't going to have any idea what I'm talking about, you know? It's so good. And after almost 4 full playthroughs, I just want to play through it again. I really do. I just want to play through it again. It is an incredible game. And ultimately, there's a lot of games that came out this year, but none of them made me feel the way that Armored Core 6 did. I made Gundam lookalikes that aren't very good lookalikes, but I did my best. I made references to Grantide from Super Robot Wars and the Lancelot from Code Geass. And then I got to play this incredible story and meet these incredible characters, even down to like Volta and Red, right? That don't have a lot of stuff going, Mater Link, that don't have a lot of stuff going on and story-wise aren't around all that much. But the little moments with them, the moment when Red realizes you betrayed him, or when he betrays you, I guess, it just, this game is incredible, and every playthrough only makes me love it more. I adore this game, and I hope that I've done a good enough job of explaining why. It's a lot harder to talk about the story in this game because the decision paths branch off quite a bit, and a lot of the characters you only get little bits of dialogue from. Like Snail, even across 4 playthroughs, you get maybe 30 lines of dialogue from Snail, right? Like, it's not a lot, but there's a lot of characterization in there of, like, Rusty's already reloading the next shot, and Snail is like, of course he is. He's Arquebus. Arquebus doesn't hire second rate. And then Gun 1 Michigan is like, you see that, Iguazu? See that, Gun 5? Somebody knows how to do their job. It's so much life brought into characters that you never get to see the faces of. To the point where when I had to fight Walter, I was legitimately upset. Because Walter had so many times throughout the game called me his hound. Don't talk about my hound that way. He's not a hound you can treat badly. I love these characters, and I've never got to see their faces. And I think a game that can make me fall in love with a cast that we never get to see has far and above excelled when it comes to storytelling. Like, when I get to see characters like Siegmeyer, and these are all from characters that I'm referencing here, right? You may say, well, it's not fair to compare it to Dark Souls or Elden Ring or Sekiro. I think it absolutely is fair. But when I get to, because it's made by the same company, and maybe not the same dev teams, but you know what I mean. When I compare, like, I look at Siegmeyer, I don't have to see his face to feel pity for what he becomes, right? In that same way, I don't ever have to see Walter's face to feel sorrow and regret when I see what All Mine turns him into. And I love this game. I'm just going to keep rambling like this if I don't stop myself, but this game is absolutely worth playing. You should 100% it as much as you can. If you don't want to S-rank every mission, I understand it. I'm working on it little by little, but if you can, it's absolutely worth 3 full playthroughs. I know that may sound like a lot. You breeze through those playthroughs once you get going because you know what you're doing and you know how to beat them, right? But it absolutely is worth it in my mind. I adore this game. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. An Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon has to offer.